Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound. It's our regular Sunday interview, the third one of 2025, and interestingly, the second one already with a Pelagic band. So I don't know what that label in Berlin is putting into the waters of Berlin, but they seem to have some good taste. I'm very, very happy to have Michael and Mattias from Pothamus here on the show. So guys, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. And what did your third member do? He's like he doesn't want to talk to us, or what's like?
He doesn't like talking.
Yeah.
Actually, the opposite is true in regards to some. No, we always try to sort of how do I say it? The three of us try to talk to journalists or interviewers and exchange a little bit who does what duties. So now it was our turn.
You already gave me a good chance to go into the next question, Mattias. What are the two of you doing in Pothamus?
Well, together we are the rhythm tandem, I would say. So I'm doing percussion, drums. That's my main activity, so to speak. On the new album, I'll also be singing, and I'm playing an instrument called the shruti box or the surpeti, which is a bit of an ancient drone instrument, originally used for mantra singing. So it accompanies ritualistic get-togethers and mantra singing. But mainly I'm the drummer, and Michael is the bass player, but he can probably tell it in a better fashion than myself.
No, I just play the bass.
There we go.
I try to compose interesting rhythms together with Matti. And on the side of that, I also do all the video work for Pothamus.
Then the question is, you've already hinted at it. You know, like you two share the rhythm section duties, and then you have a third member, Sam, who's not present due to, as I understood it, renovation work at his house or something like that. So the thing is, how do the three of you compose your tracks? All together or everybody separately?
Yeah, all together. Mostly the bass is drum and bass, just an interesting rhythm, something that captivates us. And then we try to add layers wherever we go to. Mostly Sam tries some interesting sounds, some new effects, some drones. But we start mostly with a rhythm, just something that grabs us.
Yeah, like every note that you hear us play is 100% composed together. So there's nothing that that one individual writes at home or thinks of at home. We need to be together. We need to be co-present, bodily, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And then we jam, basically. I guess it's really an old school way of trying to compose music, but we need that togetherness. We need each other to stimulate the creative process, to stimulate each other's ideas. So there's not like one composer or one leader or whatever. We also try to direct each other sometimes, saying, I liked what you were doing there, but maybe try to make it a bit more monotonous or make it a bit more flowy or whatever. It's really a collective process. And the more I talk with other artists or other bands, the more I realize it has become a bit of a rare thing to do it like that. And it made me love our own way of things even more, because obviously sometimes it's very frustrating as well. We have weeks, months that nothing really comes to the surface, and then all of a sudden there's a new song that we just sort of created out of nothing. So it's interesting, to say the least.
Do you then also record your jam sessions, or?
Yeah, we have this small microphone in the middle, just an easy, a simple Zoom. We record everything with that, and then we'll listen again, and we try to emulate or try to pin down what makes it interesting, and then we pick those elements and try to compose something.
Yeah, we sometimes call the Zoom our fourth band member. It's the memory of our band, because sometimes we jam for 20 minutes on end, and then you can refer to you know that one piece where you did the wow 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 instead of the wow wow. It was very interesting. Yeah. Of course, it doesn't really always translate that well. So then we're very happy to be able to record those jam sessions and say, oh yeah, this something happens here. I cannot say what or why, but this is it. We need to capture this and take this on forward to see what we can do with it next. Yeah.
Do you then also listen to the recordings together?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So then it's basically a double meeting, right? First you jam, then you listen, and
yeah, and it's all also very interesting to notice how sometimes you play something and you think this is cool, and then you listen to it again and you say, nah, there's something missing, or the other way around. So you're just too focused on your own instrument and you think, I'm not feeling it, and then you listen to it and you hear the collectiveness, you hear how all the sounds combine, and yeah, there is something here. So it's a crucial element, really. Sometimes we say, how the fuck did bands do it, like 20, 30 years ago without the technology and without the this chance to sort of on the spot listen to what you've created. I have no idea how we would do it without that small zoom. I mean, it's crucial for us.
I think it's just a matter of how you start a band. I mean, like, of course, one could say that you had 5 years in between Raya and Abur, so that is a long time. Queen would have published 10 albums in between, but they sure. also, first of all, they did that as a job, which is, I think, a crucial element. Second of all, they worked on the ideas that their band members would be developing at home. So that's a very, very difficult thing. As you say, like, everything gets together and everything flows together when you do it as a free piece. Whereas like Brian May or the Deacon, they would write stuff on their own, bring it to the table, and then they would flesh it out. Right. So, there's a lot of difference in between there. But I would like to come back to that flow that you mentioned, because having had the pleasure of seeing you live a few years ago, I can totally get that flow that you've been mentioning. Is that also something that you are, in a way, actively seeking when you are jamming together, trying to get into that zone? Like, okay, we don't know where the space is today, but that's where we got to go.
Yeah, for sure. For me, at least, I think one of the most compelling arguments to throw away or to maintain something that we've written is I feel it or I don't feel it. And for me, to a big extent, it has to do with flow. I think something extremely potent or powerful happens the moment that your own sounds, the sound waves that you create with your instrument, when they meet your bandmates' sounds and when they create this entity where at the same time you're a part of, but also you're not fully that, you emerged into something bigger. And that is something very spiritual almost. It's something religious, cathartic. It's very, very potent, very powerful. And I think that's what we're aiming for. I think when the three of us say that part right there, that was good, I think to a big extent it has to do with the flow, with something that happens, with some rhythm, with something that resonates very deep. It's hard to put it into words, but I think that the people who've been to shows that really grab them, or who play music together, I think they know how that experience feels. And I think that's the biggest. That's what we're aiming for. I think for that feeling that you're sort of surpassing your own individual activity and you're sort of part of something bigger. Yeah.
Is that also something that you, at best, would give to the audience, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing you can give to the audience. I believe transcendence is like the main quality of music. On a personal as well as on a collective level. On a personal level, you can like transcend time and space listening to music in your own room. But as a collective, you can feel connected in a venue or on a festival ground. And I think especially music and sound waves have this like weird, this special quality that makes it, I don't know, it goes to the gut feeling. It's difficult to explain. It's not very rational.
Have you then also already noticed a crowd, for example, having that moment? Because I always like to call that the Amenra effect. You know, whenever you go to an Amenra concert, there is, for Christ's sake, I've always witnessed it for like more than half dozen Amenra shows that I've seen by now. There is always that one moment where they are able to get the crowd doing the same movement at the same time, and it's like a wave. Have you also witnessed that already at your own concerts?
Yeah, we have. For example, the Alcatraz Festival show, for some reason, I can't say why, but for some reason it was there. There was this sort of excitement right before the show. Like the tent was full with people waiting for a show to begin. You could feel the tension there. And the moment that we hit the first note, you could just feel like something is just happening here. Like it's it starts with the three of us making some kind of an energy, and it bounces back to the audience. And it's it's this word that's used, I think, far too often, but it has something ritualistic, and not in a theatrical sense, but in the pure meaning of the word. I think for a social gathering to become a ritual, two essential elements are needed. You need a group or a collective, and you need a shared intention, and aim towards something that is sacred, something that surpasses the mundane. And sometimes it's there, and I think the fact that it's so hard to describe in words makes it so powerful.
I think there's also a certain necessity for an openness on all sides. Everybody has to be open to letting it happen. Not necessarily maybe aiming too much, but if it happens, it happens. When you were at Alcatraz, did that experience also influence your own performance?
Yeah, I think if you talk about energy, it's not one way, it's going back and forth, and that's how it felt. You could feel the enthusiasm of the audience, and it lifts you up as a musician. But I would also like to add that it may all sound very uplifting or spiritual, but it's also like very prosaic and hard work. You have to like keep showing up, keep trying. Sometimes it doesn't work. You have to, it's also a very technical side of it. Also in rehearsals, there are so many songs we record that don't make the cut. And I think, you have to like work really hard to reach this flow, which may sound like a contradiction, but it's not.
No, it's a very interesting and correct point. And maybe to connect both, like we recently had an interview where the interviewer asked us, like, you're obviously trying to reach towards something bigger when you play shows, but aren't you like tired of your own music after playing it so many times? But it's only because we've played it so many times and that we've put so much hard work in it that we come to a point that when playing it live, we can slowly sort of leave the technical aspects a little bit behind us, that we've got a little bit of experience now. We know how to play the songs. We don't need to focus on those aspects too much. And that's the point that we can sort of reach the flow state, sort of tap into that energy and enjoy that ritualistic aspect next to that hard work and dedication thing even more. So I can imagine that there's musicians who grow tired of their music, but for us and for what we are aiming for, it's like a little bit of the other way around at this point.
Would you say that there are moments when you grow tired of looking for the flow during rehearsals? But whenever you go on stage, that's a very different thing, because you go on stage with a certain set of songs that you already know.
Oh, there's a lot of questions.
Let's go first with this. What is harder, coming up with the songs or performing them?
Coming up with the songs.
Yeah, definitely.
Takes
I
a
would
long
have guessed so.
Yeah.
And then the second step from there, is that the part that is also more gut-wrenching, more, sometimes even more disappointing? Because I think, Mattias, you said it, like there are months when nothing happens.
Yeah, for sure. It's crawling through the dirt sometimes. It's really like, sometimes it's tiring. It's and I guess I see Michael nodding. I guess for him it's the same thing. Sometimes it's frustrating when you don't reach that point. But then at the same time, and I guess it's with that in every aspect of life. But then at the same time, when you reach it, it's it's nice. Finally, it's here. And then the weeks or months of work sort of pay off, I guess. But yeah, when we talk about spirituality or ritualistic aspects, it sounds very high up there and very beautiful and but sometimes it's just fucking frustrating as well.
And
Yeah, I
afterwards,
mean, like if you
wonder
search
what
for
all
it
those
and
months-
don't get it, of course.
Sorry?
If you're searching for that enlightening spiritual moment and you don't get it, I mean, like, of course, there surely is that after like 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions when you are going in again and again and again, and then you're listening and none of you says like, ah, bear. And none of you find something. I think that is probably the hard work.
Yeah.
Let me guess. The ritualistic side on a frequency level happens more often on stage than during rehearsals, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
I would agree as well. Yeah.
Do you change the tracks when you are playing them live, or are they always like 99% the same stuff that you've written?
I would say like 99% the same. It's because lots of the song structures, they remain the same, but how you play a note or how long you play a drone, or it leaves some openness for the live experience. It's funny because sometimes we get the reaction from fans who said, "Oh, you played a totally different version," or you rewrite the songs, but we don't improvise. We just play the song how we wrote it. Just because the small moments you get of openness you have, it may feel different.
Have you ever changed a song because of a live experience?
Yeah, because before we record songs on the album, we tried them live. Most of Abur we have played live already, just here and there, and then we may change some stuff afterwards.
Let's talk about the time in between Raya and Abur. 5 years. I'm very sure it's not a conscious. Very sure it was not a conscious decision. Are these 5 years because of, how should I say, of a non-compromise, no bullshit attitude, or were there other elements that led to it becoming 5 years in the end?
Well, it's a mix of factors. I think first and foremost, it's the fact, as I said before, that we need to be together to write.
Yeah.
That we have long periods where we just can't grab it. So that obviously decides it as well to a certain point when, and also after Raya, obviously, or no, not obviously, like to our surprise, quite some doors opened. We before Raya, we played, in bars and on the floor in the local cafe, so to speak. And then after Raya, we almost suddenly were thrown on quite bigger stages than we were used to before. So obviously, we also wanted to bring those songs as good as possible. So we tried to rehearse them as well. I think a third aspect is also the fact that well, when Abur was almost completely written, Pelagic showed a big interest in releasing our album. We had a few talks, and they wanted to release it. And yeah, they have their agenda, of course, of their own. I think if it was up to us, we would have released it a bit sooner, because the songs were, if I'm not mistaken, recorded. Michael, you're better at timing than I am, but they were recorded at the end of 23.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess a few months later we had everything, but for Pelagic, the first available moment was February 25. Yeah. So there was also an aspect that we needed to take into account.
And you've also spoken about, at the beginning, you've spoken about like slight changes in not the lineup, but the duties. Mattias, you're now also doing vocal duties. Mm-hmm. How did that feel for you when you started doing that together with Sam, right? I think he's the other vocalist. Yeah. How did that feel for you?
Liberating in a way.
Okay.
I'm a drummer because at one point I chose to sort of smack the drum that I had in my room when I was 16. But I've never sort of felt as a drummer. I like playing music. I have a solo project as well, where I play a little bit of guitar, a little bit of bass, synths. I like to experiment with different sounds more than I feel myself or regard myself as a drummer. So I think it was a matter of time only before I sort of wanted to introduce some other instruments within Pothamus. And I guess being the drummer already, the extra vocals felt sort of more easy than suddenly starting to play the guitar behind my drum set. And also because I think the specific music we make, the atmosphere that we try to create, it lends itself quite well for an extra vocalist, for extra range of vocals, and to combine two voices. I think it creates a whole new array of feelings and possibilities. So yeah, we experimented a little bit with it in the rehearsal space, and it worked. Not always and not immediately, but I think we sort of made it work, and it felt good. So yeah, now all of a sudden we have songs where I sing, so I have to do it live as well, which will be a whole other thing, but we'll see.
And you've spoken about the introduction of the Shruti box into the music. Who came up with that idea?
Yeah, that was me as well. I saw it for the first time.
He makes it sound like a solo project, doesn't he, Michael?
Yeah.
We all have equal input.
All good. Just go on. So you came up with the idea of a Shruti box. Why?
Yeah, I saw it at a show in our hometown in Mechelen. Every year in April, there's this festival called Lunalia, and there's all kinds of neoclassical, neo-folk, ambient sort of concerts, and I tried to pick a few of them to go. There's always very interesting things to see. And one of the things I saw was a very weird, I can't remember the ensemble, but it was very weird neoclassical meets sort of dark theater kind of. It was a really weird thing. And one of the people there, they played that instrument, the surpeti, and I was really intrigued by the sound, like the almost like complaining, drony, sort of very nasal sound. I liked. They drew me in. So yeah, I searched it online, and I bought one a few months later. And again, there's also a little bit of a pragmatic aspect. It's easy to take with you. It's easy to put on your snare drum and play. So yeah, that also played a role.
Let's talk about a few of the songs on the record. I'm like, oftentimes I interpret stuff too much, but you have two songs called Icavus and Ravus, who are placed symmetrically on the record with similar lengths and, of course, with assonating ending syllables. Are they meant like a couple, like siblings, or is that just pure incident?
Michael, you want to say, or
I'm gonna leave it to you.
it's the things that you mentioned are more of a coincidence than deliberate. But I love the fact that the way that the songs are called and what we do with the songs and everything around it, that it sort of stimulates people to search for deeper layers. That's something that we try to do, lyrically, conceptually, visually with the artwork. So no, I love the fact that you dive into it. The song titles are drawn out of a self constructed language, I would say, that Ilian Put, our dear friend and the artist that makes all the artwork, he came up with the language, the text, the words, and we sort of, out of that new language, we pick certain words that we think are fitting for the things that we want to say, the songs, how they sound to us. Yeah, that's basically how we came to Icavus and Ravus.
Is that then also the words that are used on the cover, where it seems like, I don't know, a slab of wood onto which somebody has written something?
Yeah, that's self-made language indeed. That's on the cover as well.
I mean, like, if it's self-made, of course, there's probably a non-real sense behind it. But I mean, like, words are semantical and they are phonetics. And, you know, when you come up with these ideas, the words to your lyrics, do they necessarily have a deeper sense, a deeper meaning, or is a part of it also just onomatopoeic, like the sound of it is important?
Are you talking about the titles or the lyrics as such?
The lyrics, not the titles.
No, the lyrics are very semantical. Yeah, for sure. So basically, how the lyrics and the conceptualization works is, so I come up with the lyrics and the concepts. Of course, I discuss it with Michael in first instance and also some, but that's a bit my terrain. Like, Michael is in charge of the video clips and all the visual materials. I'm in charge of the concepts and the texts. When we write the song, so purely the music aspect of it, and we know what kind of, like, when it's done for 80%, I start thinking about, okay, what are we gonna express with it, and what are the ideas that we're gonna give with those music, with that music. When I have like the big red threads throughout the conceptual hedge, so to speak, I throw it at Ilian, our artist, and he translates those ideas into visual imagery and symbols. He also comes up with the text, the language that I was talking about, the self-made language. Out of that, we distill a few words that are fitting for the song titles. And then we start to differentiate the songs within that bigger conceptual hedge. So each song is a bit of a chapter within that broader idea. And then I write the lyrics regarding the idea that's behind it. There's also like an extra challenge there, because when we write the music, Sam sings on it, but phonetically. So he uses his voice as an extra instrument.
Yeah, just like harmonies, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like just nonsensical verbs, vowels. And at the point that the songs are finished and I'm writing the lyrics, I write out his vocal lines, like phonetically, vowel per vowel, and I try to sort of mold my meaning and my ideas and the words I want to use within that sort of within the vocal lines that he has come up with. So it's a bit of a puzzle there, phonetically, semantically, conceptually. But sort of it always works out in a way.
And do you three then also discuss the topics that you come up with, Mattias?
Yeah, for sure. I always share what the ideas are. We talk about it. I think almost everything that we do is we can stand behind it unanimously. So there's nothing that I decide on my own. But yeah, 95% of the creative work behind it is my part, and then sort of we see if it works, if it fits, if it's good enough. Sometimes Michael comes with an extra idea as well. So it's for sure it's discussed, yeah, and it's carried by the three of us.
That also then indirectly explains the time gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, there's if some would write the lyrics on the spot, so to speak, when he's writing his when he's singing, it would definitely shorten the time.
Yeah, definitely. Then there is another track that I would like to talk about, because in the press kit that we always get, of course, there are like descriptions, and there was one for Savatu Abur, where it's being talked about like the idea of chaos somewhere behind everything. Is it really the idea of chaos, or is it more the idea of let's do things differently? Let's do it not the way that everybody else has done it.
It's definitely the second. I think Savartum Avur conceptually within the bigger frame evokes this idea of coming to realize that certain things that we normalize, certain ideas that we cultivate as people are maybe not that beneficial for us or our relationship with each other, our relationship with our environment. And of course, the act of deconstructing ideas that you have internalized to such a great extent and to such a big length of time, it comes with a sense of chaos, with a sense of steerlessness, maybe even, and that's a bit what that song depicts conceptually. The realization that maybe ideas that are normalized are not that should not have been normalized, and to deconstruct that is a bit of let's say a conceptual storm, or yeah.
And I think we also must talk about the musical step, because of course there are clear changes in your sound between Raya and Abur. When listening to Raya, which for me was one of the exceptional records of 2020, one heard a band that was firmly rooted in, for lack of a better word, let's say post-metal. When listening to Abur, I hear a band who still has some post-metal roots, but who very much embraces the idea of a record being a journey, and that journey is not necessarily metal, but very, very tribal, very, very ritualistic. I guess that was in a way a conscious decision, right? Stepping away a little bit from the loud versus quiet dynamics, creating a more primal sound.
Yeah, for me, I understand as an outsider's perspective, it may seem like two totally different albums, but I think we already tried to do that with Raya. We tried this ritualistic, primal, trance-inducing music, but we just got better at it, I think, during the writing of Abur, and we maybe Matti can add.
No, I think, yeah. The thing is, like, Raya was the product of a very conscious decision to make something that feels organic, that feels raw, that feels broad, that has indeed a little bit of a tribal-esque element there. But of course, when you write your first full-length album, like, you can go wherever. Now writing your sophomore album, you always have this kind of reference. So I think that the difference here is that we could refer to certain parts of Raya of which we wanted to say, that's cool, and I don't think we explored everything that's there yet. So I think in a way it's maybe a deepening of what we did with Raya. It was more of an exploration of more subtle elements that we already did, but now could be more refined, but or in the other direction could be more broad, could be more fierce in a way. So I guess it's going further along the way or the road that we've taken, but in a more conscious way, maybe. Yeah.
But you would agree that the record definitely is less metal, right?
Yes. I think even in the Raya period, we would have hesitated calling ourselves a metal band. I think we were always a little bit the odd one out. Even then, but now, yeah. I mean, if people ask me what kind of band Pothamus is, when they have no clue of what we're doing, it's the best thing that I come up with. It's post metal, but I don't know. It's this category or label that doesn't really quite fit that good, but it's the best that I can use. So no, I don't think we're a metal band, and then at the same time, I don't know what we are if it's not metal.
It is interesting that, again, Pelagic, who gave us the press release, came up with two bands that I would never at first have associated with Pothamus. They compared you to Heilung and Vadruna.
At the same
musically, we all three would probably agree that there is not a lot of connection, right?
No, and yes at the same time. Musically, no. Although
exactly.
I do sense where they're coming from. I think it's very percussion driven, our music, and that's the same thing with Heilung and Vadruna as well.
Yeah, and I think there is this mental connection.
Yeah,
it's like the effect that all three bands are looking for. I think that is similar, but not the journey that they go on.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess it just shows how wide you can go with a range of instruments. I mean, we're using the same instruments that every other metal band uses, but then we are linked to two bands that are not using those instruments. So it's like, what is your intention? What is your will? What are you trying to evoke? And there's so much to explore. So yeah, it's interesting to say the least.
It is, and it's interesting also to see that on very, very different journeys, you can come to very, very similar effects. That is also something that one has to congratulate you on. There is one last question that I have for you before we come to the infamous quickfire round at the end. And that is, on the record, you have one track which is called Icavus. You already mentioned it. It's completely without guitars. So what is Sam doing at the time? Is he getting a cup of tea, or what is he doing?
Yeah, he's singing.
But no, honestly, it sounds a lot like in German we have this term like kosmische Musik, like very, very kraut rocky and stuff like that. Is that something that you are interested in? Like let's see how far we can take this.
Yeah, we are. I think the interesting thing about writing or music is we each have our own individual influences. Like Matti is very much influenced by Heilung, Vadruna. My favorite bands are like Swans. I really like their vast sound and approach. And I think we each three bring our own stuff to the table, and then we try to create something with these different ingredients. And I feel for all three of us that we have this sense of, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if we try with this new instrument. Let's try this new effect. Icavus, I don't know, it just happened when I was playing some new effect on my bass, and Matti was playing with the Shruti box, and suddenly we had a song. So I think, if I have to compare Raya and Abur, with Abur we became better in expressing ourselves. And I think now we want to see how far we can go with expressing and finding new sounds.
You've definitely, with Icavus, you've definitely shown a new side to Pothamus, but it's very interesting.
Thank you.
So, guys, first of all, thanks for all the insight. But nobody leaves the Veil of Sound interview without having to go for the infamous quickfire round at the end. You will both get the same alternatives, and you both have to choose, like AC versus DC, Jerry Lewis versus, I don't know, any other comedian from the 20th century, Johnny Cash versus Elvis Presley, Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, something like that.
All right.
Let's start off with something from your hometown, Mechelen, close to Brussels. So I'll give you 2 football clubs. KV Mechelen versus Anderlecht.
Ooh, that's an easy one. Never Anderlecht. I will go for KV Mechelen.
Michael?
Me too, KV Mechelen.
I mean, like, one obvious comparison that you are still drawing, I'm very, very sure, is Neurosis. So I'll give you 2 Neurosis albums, Through Silver and Blood versus Grace.
Grace.
I'll go for Through Silver and Blood.
That is perfect, because I'm always on the edge between like that.
Yeah.
Heilung versus Vadruna.
Heilung.
This really tears my heart in two.
It's tearing up my heart.
I will go for Vadruna just for the sake of equilibrium.
Sake of balance.
Yeah, exactly.
A band who is also sometimes as krauty as you are on Icavus, Blood Incantation. Do you like the krauty and ambient side more, or the tech death?
Or?
The tech death side of Blood Incantation.
The
hard death metal side.
Technical death aspect. I'll go for the ambient krauty part.
I'm more for the kraut and ambient.
And now something to tear up Michael's heart. Godspeed You Black Emperor. Which period is better? The first one or the one after the hiatus?
I think Mladic is their best song, so I will say after.
Okay. Mattias?
Me too, actually. Yeah, I'm following that.
Okay, so now you've been judging based on songs. Would it be the same if you were talking about records?
I think, yeah, the first period really had something magical. Lift Your Fists is like so iconic, so it's easy to say the first period. But I think they did a nice job after the hiatus too. I only have seen them live during that period. I discovered them during that period, so they are. The after hiatus period has like it's close to my heart.
Yeah. I think that is a good sign for a band if both periods of a band are equally good. And I think that is definitely the way with Godspeed. I'm not hoping for a hiatus with Pothamus because I don't want to wait more than 5 years. And everybody, I've said so already once this year that I think we have a good candidate for our top 10 lists at the end of the year. I know we're only in January, but these guys' record, that's gonna be very, very high on my list.
Thank you so much.
Because what did Neil Armstrong say? It's a small leap for a drummer or a bass player, but a giant leap for a band. You know, like it's a really, really cool record. I like the new facades and new sides of Pothamus. But not another 5 years, folks, okay?
We will do our utmost best. I promise.
Hey, you've been videotaped now, remember. So.
Can't escape this. The internet never lies, right?
So in 3.5 years, I'll be like, you promised. No, guys, thanks for all the songs. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on stages. And give our love to Sam and all the best for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you so much for the lovely talk. See you soon, I hope.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.